Hello guys, welcome to Aniswift TV. Our story starts off with a goddess, Ristarte, given an S-class world to save. She runs home and panics about the difficulty of the task. She looks through a pile of heroes to summon. She gently rearranges the papers and one conveniently lands on her face that has high stats. She summons the hero, Seiya. She tells him that he has been summoned to save a world from the Demon King. He calls her a freak and asks her why she can't save it herself. She says gods can't interfere directly in the mortal world. He refuses, but she says he can't do that. She tells Seiya to say status, but he uses property. She begs him to say status, then he does, revealing his stat points. Ristarte Doctor Strange's a portal to the other world, but he says she's crazy and begins training. Ristarte complains to a goddess about Seiya. She tells her to take care of her hero and give him what he needs. She heads home and sees Seiya still training. She gives him food and basic necessities, then tells him to call when he's ready to leave. 1 week passes and he finally calls her. She goes in to see a sexy demon, then looks at his power and is surprised by how big it is. She opens a portal and he says he is perfectly prepared and is 100% ready before getting dragged into the portal. After arriving in the other world, they walk through the town and head to the blacksmith. Seiya asks for 3 pairs of armor, but Ristarte says he's crazy and buys his equipment for him. He takes the rest of the money and buys smoke bombs and herbs. Ristarte tells him it's time to fight monsters. He tells her he doesn't trust her when a little one comes and tells him that the only thing outside the gates are slimes. She gives him a flower for good luck and he asks if it has been cursed. They head outside the gates. A hideous slime suddenly appears. Seiya hides behind a rock, then slices the monster to non-existence, but fearing its soul remains, he burns it until he is pleased that such a fugly creature no longer exists. Ristarte scolds him for cleansing the world. One of the Demon King's ruler, Albedo, appears. She tells them she's going to end the hero and prepares to attack. Ristarte asks Seiya what to do and he does the Joestar's secret technique. Seiya throws smoke bombs, then grabs Ristarte and tells her to Sorcerer Supreme a portal. They run towards it, but the demon catches up. Seiya uses a fireball on her, then enters the portal. Inside the room, Ristarte sits on Seiya, but he's top G and pushes her off, then begins training. Ristarte looks into a ball. The demon tells her that every 10 minutes she takes off someone's thinker. She rushes to Seiya and tells him. He continues to train. She tries to open a portal, but he stops her and begins pushing down the world. The demon prepares to send the little one to them, but Seiya continues to train. Ristarte says she made a mistake summoning him and starts crying. He tells her he must always be ready to win because if he fails, the world and all its people will be destroyed. He declares he's perfectly prepared and is 100% ready for this. He goes back to the other world and fires a wind slash at the monster that frees the captives. He tells them to run. The monster takes hormone pills and transforms. She begins fighting Seiya, but he is still keeping up with her. She pokes herself with the sword and transforms again into Zod. She tells Seiya she will defeat him in one blow and attacks, but he blocks her strike. Ristarte notices that Seiya has been disguising his stats. She breaks all his locks to reveal that his stats are far higher than he showed, then realizes that he was stronger than the demon from the very beginning. The demon flies into the sky and charges a death ball. Seiya flies beside her and uses Phoenix Dive to defeat the monster. He grabs a broom and begins sweeping the monster remains into a pile, then carries out the great cleansing and burns the entire city to the ground. The citizen gets on his knees and begs them to leave. The villagers they saved came and give them money as thanks. Seiya asks for more and robs the refugees he made. Ristarte tells him to get to the next town, but he refuses and goes back to train. Ristarte sits and speaks to her friend about Seiya. He comes in and tells them that he can no longer level up through exercising. The goddess recommends him to go train with a god. He accepts and she introduces him to the sword god. The god accepts the challenge and warns Seiya that his training is tough. They begin to train by clashing swords. After the first day of training, Ristarte sees the sword god eating and he tells her that Seiya is weaker than him. On the second day she sees the sword god and he complains that he can't win against Seiya anymore. On the third day she sees him and he tells her that he doesn't want to talk about the training. On the fourth day she walks to Seiya and finds the sword god hiding on the beach. He tells her Seiya is crazy and won't let him stop training. Seiya finds them and tells the god they're gonna start again. The sword god throws away his sword and Seiya drags his victim away to the arena. Ristarte meets with the oracle. She tells her that the next village in the other world is going to be attacked soon, so she must leave now. She heads to Seiya and finds him rearranging the face of the god while he cries on the floor. She tells him it's time to leave. He says he is perfectly prepared and 100% ready. They arrive in the world and find many villagers evacuating. They tell them that the undead is coming towards them. Seiya immediately goes to the shop and buys all the holy water he can hold, then they head towards the church. The pastor tells them he has been waiting for him and shows them 2 new allies. Seiya pours holy water on the pastor's head, he transforms into a demon and the two allies confront him. Seiya slices him apart but he's still unalive. Seiya decides to cleanse him and Ristarte tells everyone to run as he demolishes the church. The two allies introduce themselves, he pours holy water on everyone present then scans their stats. Ristarte tries to convince him to let them stay but he says no because they are far too weak. Soldiers come towards them and ask what happened. The nun tells them and they bow to Seiya then ask him for his help. He asks them for a fee and they agree to pay him but he says he needs it in writing then flies away. Ristarte prays to the higher gods and gains wings to follow after him. Seiya sees her and flies faster. Ristarte tries to keep up but she runs out of steam. Seiya comes back and brings her with him. He sees the zombie army walking towards them. He casts a meteor spell and returns them to hell. He casts another meteor and begins to feel pain because he used 200 of his 1500 mana. In the inn, the little one tells Ristarte his brother has gone missing. She heads to see Seiya and sees him with a platinum sword. He tells her he used her goddess hair to make it stronger. A lady comes inside and says someone left a gift for them. They open it and find a mirror that projects a demon lord with the little one's brother. The demon lord tells them he's gonna turn the boy undead. The little one congratulates him on taking out the army and tells him to save the world. Seiya tells Ristarte to open a portal. He tells the demon that he already ran this situation in his head then slices off his hand with a dimension cutter. They head to the god realm. Seiya goes to the oracle and asks her to open a portal to the location of the little one. They arrive at the demon's evil lair. Ristarte heals the little one while Seiya fights the demon. He summons a familiar and says that the only way to defeat it is ice magic. Seiya thanks him for the info then punches the monster. It begins to freeze from his ice amulet. Seiya finishes it off with Phoenix Dive then makes the demon lord wish he never came back to life. The little one wakes up. Seiya comes in and tells them carrying his bag is now their purpose in life. They tell Seiya that they should head to their dragon forest to break the seal and get a mighty weapon. He tells them not yet because they need to train. They head to the god realm and see the sword god baking a cake. He sees Seiya and gets PTSD but he tells the sword god that he will be training the little one then he accepts. They bring the sister to a fire god to train then Seiya looks for someone to train him. The goddess introduces him to the goddess of war. She laughs at him and decides to teach him. On the first day of training, Ristarte sees the goddess of war taking a break and tells her he's amusing. On the second day of training she sees the god of war stalking Seiya. On day 3, Ristarte collects the dragon boy who improves drastically then collects the dragon girl who didn't improve at all. She finds Seiya waiting for the god of war. She hugs him and says she loves him but he rejects her then leave. He says he is perfectly prepared and 100% ready for this and enters the portal. They travel to the dragon's home. They see a monster and Seiya's pet takes it out. Ristarte tries to look at Seiya's stats but she's punished. They climb up the mountain and find a cave. Inside the cave, they find a door that needs 2 hand prints to open. Seiya does the obvious answer and slices the door apart then heads inside. A voice tells them to step on a magic circle but Seiya tested with a lizard first. They head down and find a dragonoid who shows them around the city. They are presented to the queen who shows the dragon boy how to activate hybrid Zoan form. The dragon girl asks the queen to show her how to transform. But the queen refuses because she is meant to be sacrificed to create a weapon that can defeat the demon king. The dragon girl accepts her faith and runs away. At the ceremony, they are treated to a feast and music. The queen decides it is time for the sacrifice. They bring the dragon girl to a cliff and tell her to take a leap of faith. Her brother fights back, but he is stopped. They try to throw her off, but Seiya saves her. The queen tells them they're being selfish and reveals that the food they ate earlier had a poison that paralyzes them. They try to throw them off, but Seiya kicks them away and reveals he didn't eat their food. The queen transforms into a dragon and flies to Seiya. He grabs his bag and takes out a dragon slayer sword. He cuts through the queen then saves the dragon girl. She activates a necklace that will make the girl be sent to God once it turns black. He uses dragon dive on her taking half her HP. She activates a golden form that makes her indestructible. He pulls out a second dragon slayer sword and attacks the queen until she reaches the edge of the cliff. She begins to fly but there's a few holes in her plan and she falls down breaking the curse on the dragon girl. A sword comes out of the abyss. He cuts the dragon girl and transforms it into a demon king ending sword. They go up the portal and Ristarte reveals that his demon ending sword is a fake. He admits it's just a platinum sword he made and he will need to find another way to defeat the demon king. They leave the cave and find knights that bow to them and ask for help to defeat a demon lord. They fly to the location and find a swarm. The army shoots arrows at them but they dodge and grab the soldiers to test fall damage. They walk through the camp and find a woman that tells everyone to retreat to the castle. At the castle, they have a meeting. Seiya says he's going to go back to the god realm. The woman calls him a coward and tries to slap him, but Seiya subscribes to equal rights, equal fights. She tries again, but Seiya hands are rated E for everyone. In the god realm, Seiya asks to learn from the god of bows. Ristarte introduces Seiya to her. She makes a mistake and agrees to train him. Ristarte brings the bag carriers to the goddess to train, then visit the god of war. At her house, she finds interesting choices of decoration. The totally sane god comes behind her and asks for Seiya. She says she hasn't seen him in a while. Ristarte runs to Seiya and warns him of the goddess, but the emo followed her there. She prepares to poke Seiya, but he counters with mad game. He rubs her head, breaking her composure and returning her to sanity. He tells her to leave him alone, then she runs away giggling. Ristarte goes back to the goddess. The teenage dragon boy makes his right arm bigger, while the girl can use support magic to slow down and speed up things. They head to Seiya and find him doing his final exam. The bow god tells him to hit all the vines at once to release her to the world, but he gives her a facial instead. She breaks the vines herself and shines the holy light onto the world. She pulls out the arrow, then charges at Seiya. He fills her holes, but it has no effects. She says age is just a number, then charges at the dragon boy. She tries to take his innocence, but Seiya saves him by pinning her to a tree. They go back to the other world and see the blue hair woman climbing the hive. They decide to use her as a decoy, but he gets distracted and she gets taken. He decides to use Ristarte as a replacement. She flies up to the demon lord. He sees her and flies further into the sky. He prepares to make the woman a reverse fireworks when an arrow comes out from the clouds, making him drop her. The demon asks for Seiya to come out. More arrows target him, but he dodges it. Seiya gets a hole in one, causing the bug to explode. He no-scopes all the remaining flies, then tells his secretaries to gather their remain into a pile. He conjures an explosion to desecrate the corpses of the defeated ones. The woman comes and tells him about the legendary armor that's hidden in a village. They head to the city and find a hellscape. A demon lord tells them he destroyed the armor and now he can never defeat the demon king. He says he's going to use the ultimate skill and he sacrifices his life points to summon Dark Magician with 3 Ks. Seiya draws his blades and cuts it in half, but it regenerates into 2. It shoots lasers at him that turns into ice. He uses fire spin and tosses the twins into the portal, then gently pushes Ristarte inside. The monster follows them into the god realm. Gods charges at the monster and blows it up, but it takes no damage. Seiya runs away while the monster chases them. Seiya sees the god of war. He tells her if she defeats the monster she can get the longsword later. She charges at the monster and cuts it into pieces, but it splits apart and jumps her. They run to the home of the strongest god. Seiya tricks the monster into attacking her. She charges at the monster and takes off its thinker. It gets up and heals. She tries to put it in a chain hell, but it breaks out. She begins laughing, then calls forth the gate of Valhalla. The gate appears, then traps the monster inside before bringing it to the shadow realm. She begins bleeding from everywhere and rolls on the floor in pleasure. She grabs a handful of paradise. Seiya asks the god to train him. She grabs some pleasure, then accepts his request. Later, Ristarte checks on Seiya. She finds him doing intense training with the BDSM god. She begins freaking out, then shows them the cute doll she brought for Seiya. That level of affection freaks out the god and she leaves. Seiya says it was a ceremony, then they head back to the other world. On the other side they see war. A demon lord appears and threatens to destroy the humans. An old man in armor steps up, then annihilates the demon lord. The man channels holy light into his sword and toasts the remaining demon army in front of him. After all the enemies have been defeated, he falls to the floor and becomes a little one. The woman comes forward and picks up her father and tells them it's a curse from the demon king. Seiya decides to head inside the city. Inside, Ristarte sees a bar, but Seiya doesn't drink. She sees a casino, but he doesn't gamble. Inside the castle, the king asks about the demon king, but Seiya says he doesn't need his help to defeat him. The king asks to show Ristarte around the castle when a report comes in about a demon attack. Seiya takes his workers without pay and leave. The king talks with Ristarte about her immortality. He tells her that the soul in her body is fake and her real soul is stored in the divine realm, but there's an item called chain destruction that destroys the real soul if the fake one is cut. He shows her that the demon king lent him this weapon to enter and trap the hero in this realm. He swings at her, but she dodges and gracefully runs away. He bondages her, then prepares to send her to super heaven when Seiya comes in and saves her. He tells the king that he has to keep her safe, because without her he can't go home. He tosses her to the twins, then draws his other sword. The king eats a pill and rewinds to his prime. Seiya fights him but gets disarmed. The king uses a spell, but he blocks it. Seiya takes off all his weights, then catches both blades on fire. They return to fighting with both of them being even. The king strikes the floor and compliments him on his preparation. They clash once more with the king disarming Seiya. He prepares to finish the fight, but Seiya deflects his sword and reverse Uno cards him. He uses Phoenix Dive on the king, pushing him back into the statue. Ristarte heals Seiya and rearms him. He makes her heal the king as well. Seiya tells the woman to have her final words with her father, but she refuses. He gives her knowledge until she goes over and holds him in his final moments. Seiya remains in bed for 2 days. He wakes up and tells his party that they should have fun at bars and casinos before they fight the Demon King. Ristarte walks with the laborers. She brings them shopping and takes them to the market to buy food. They head back to the castle and find that Seiya is missing. They realize that he went to fight the Demon King alone. They go back to the God Realm and head to the Oracle. She tells them that Seiya went to the Demon King's castle alone so Ristarte won't be harmed in the fight. Ristarte tells her that Seiya wouldn't do that without training first, but the Oracle reveals that Seiya has been at the max level since the Dragon Village. She begins crying and the goddess reveals to her the truth. In the past, the goddess summons Seiya. He tells the goddess that he's going to defeat a demon lord. The healer tells him that they should prepare for the battle because they need to be 100% ready, but he ignores her and goes to fight him. The party challenges a lion. Seiya gets injured, but he doesn't care and barely defeats the lion beast, with one of his teammates losing a leg. They go on to defeat many monsters until there is only the Demon King left. The healer tells him to go to the village for information on the Demon King's ability, but he refuses. She asks why he's in such a rush. He tells her the longer the Demon King is alive, the more people will suffer. They fight the Demon King. Seiya cuts off his arm, then cuts him in half. They celebrate on barely winning the fight, but the demon suddenly respawns and eats one of his teammates, then regenerates. He grabs the goddess and has dessert. Tom Kench grabs the healer and reveals that she was pregnant with Seiya's child. Ristarte realizes that she was the healer in her past life and begins crying. The Oracle tells her that Seiya realized this when he said properties, and that's why he was always so prepared. Ristarte tries to leave, but the goddess stops her and begs her to stay, but she refuses and her party enters the portal to join him. Ristarte arrives at the battlefield. She finds Seiya fighting the Demon King. He summons the gate of Valhalla, trapping him inside. The demon breaks through the gate and opens it again, but Seiya uses Phoenix Dive, but it does nothing. The monster hits him into the wall. He gets back up and tries again, but this time he gets damaged. Seiya reveals he created a sword from the gate with Ristarte's hair, then uses Valhalla Dive to push the demon inside. Seiya falls to the ground bleeding out. Ristarte asks for her divine power to be released. The Oracle tells her that if she uses her godly powers in the human realm, there will be consequences, but she doesn't care and uses her full powers. She heals him until the recoil from the abilities ends. He gets up and she tries to kiss him, but he tells her no. She tries to force herself on him, but his hands are rated E or everyone. The gate begins screaming and the Demon King breaks out and prepares to destroy the entire world. Seiya uses the gate of Valhalla again to eat the other gate. The gate asks for the life of the caster and Seiya begins to crack. She tries to heal him, but he breaks apart. He tells the Dragonborns that as the strongest members of their world, they must protect it when he's gone. He hugs Ristarte and tells her she did the best she could. He realizes that she was his lover from the other world and is happy he saved her, then passes away. Days later, Ristarte tells the Dragonborns to take care of the world. She heads into the portal and arrives in her room. She hears Seiya's voice and runs to his training room and collapses. The goddess enters her room and tells her the Oracle called for her. She heads towards her chambers when the god of war comes to cheer her up. Then the sword god appears with a cake. The bow god appears as well, then gracefully walks away. They head up the elevator and see the bondage god. She congratulates her, then leaves. She enters the room. The Oracle tells her that her punishment will be to save a double S world, but this time her healing powers will be restricted. The goddess argues with them, but the Oracle gives her a paper of heroes she can summon, and she begins to cry in happiness as Seiya is on the list. That will be all for today. Like the video if you've liked the video, subscribe for more. Thanks for watching. Easter eggs are all over the video. Can you find them?